And another one of my favourite venues, as I mentioned earlier, would be the Bungalow Bar in Paisley. Now, there was a time in the late 1970s, early 1980s, where for some bizarre reason punk rock was banned in Glasgow. The city fathers didn't let any punk bands play in the city, which was a real disgrace when you think about it now. So we all had to go to the Bungalow Bar in Paisley, and it almost seemed like you were getting a Duke of Edinburgh award scheme badge to go there, because at that time I didn't drive, I didn't have a car. So I would go into Glasgow City Centre, get the bus into town, get the train from Glasgow Central to Gilmore Street in Paisley, which seemed miles away at the time, and then we'd walk for 10-15 minutes across Paisley to the Bungalow Bar, which kind of stood on its own, which is, on one of the kind of link roads to the road that comes off the M8, I guess you could call it. And the guy who ran the bar was a great guy called Paul Humphreys. I remember him very well, and it was actually a mate of mine who booked the bands for the Bungalow Bar, a guy called Loudon Temple. Now, it was not unusual to go to the Bungalow Bar in Paisley and see the likes of Joseph Kay, see the Skids, see the Rezillos, see the Teardrop Explode, see Orange Juice. A whole host of bands played there. And we actually have a message that's come in from Paul Humphreys' his son. He says, "Hey Billy, my dad ran a venue in Paisley called the Bungalow Bar, and I remember beating Wild Willie Barrett of John Otway and Wild Willie Barrett fame at Space Invaders." He says, "You might even have been to the gig." Well, I think I was actually at that gig. And the Bungalow Bar really was the sort of must go-to place for a lot of us, because I remember spending as many as 3 or 4 nights a week down there sometimes, because they had so many great bands on that you had to make the pilgrimage down to the famous Bungalow Bar in Paisley. And it really was an absolutely fantastic venue, and I guess you could say it was the kind of venue in Scotland that kind of paved the way for latterly places like King Tut's and the Garage and places like that. So tell me, what was your favourite venue? It can either be in Scotland or it can be much further. Billy Sloan Show. Now, we were talking earlier about the legendary Bungalow Bar in Paisley. I spent many a happy evening down there, sometimes down there 3, 4, 5 nights a week. And on my telephone, I found a photograph of a kind of bill of forthcoming attractions for October of 1980, and there were no less than 34 gigs in the month of October. Now, you may be wondering why there's 34 gigs when there's only probably 30 or 30 days in the month of October, and that's because on a Saturday they would do a different band at lunchtime who were on in the evening. And I told you that the guy who ran the place was a great guy called Paul Humphreys. Well, he's got in touch and he says, "Hi Billy, just listening to the programme, kind of brought a tear to my eye. So many good times, so many bands, and a lot of great memories." And he says, "Keep safe, old pal." Well, looking down the list for October of 1980, amongst those 34 gigs, you had the Soft Boys, who kicked off the month of October. Then the Dream Boys, who were fronted by Peter Capaldi, who now, of course, is better known as Doctor Who, and was also Malcolm Tucker in the thick of it. And the drummer in the band was none other than Craig Ferguson, who, of course, went on to forge quite a career as a late-night chat show host in America. Then you had Modern Man, Endgames, H2O, another pretty face who became the Waterboys, of course, Those French Girls, Altered Images, Orange Juice, the Revillos with their special guest Roddy Frame, who was playing one of his earliest ever gigs, and also bands like Restricted Code, the Modettes and the Cuban Heels, who all played on the hallowed ground of the Bungalow Bar in Paisley. Billy Sloan on BBC Radio Scotland. We always